That's his name. I was thinking.
You don't want to get
Oh, okay.
Good evening. I call to order the City of Gerald regular called City Council meeting, Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We're going to start with the roll call. All members but one present. We're going to have an invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Sidell.
Dear Heavenly Father, Most High God, we ask that your presence be with us tonight as we do our city's business. We ask that your hand guide us in our decision-making. We ask your blessings upon everyone present here tonight. And as always, we ask for your continued providence, keeping our children and city safe. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the next item on the agenda is public comments. We have one, Diane Burnoff. Would you like to speak now or when the agenda item comes up?
When the agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to agenda item number 3, public hearings. 3.1, we're going to open a public hearing for consideration of possible action regarding ordinance number 2024-0206-01, approving the update to the zoning code located in Chapter 4 of the Unified Development Code, Exhibit 9A. Ms. Moyer.
Mayor and council, back in September, we initiated Kimberly Horn to begin workshops on doing a zoning code update. We've gone through several workshops since then, really getting into the weeds of what we want our zoning code to be. They had brought a final draft before the joint workshop last month. Since that draft, there have only been 2 changes or modifications to what you guys saw from P&Z. They have made gas stations conditional use across the board. Previously, they were proposed to be allowed in some commercial. We scrapped that. Everything's a conditional use. And then townhomes will now be, in this version, allowed in mixed use, which would give us that medium density residential as a transition buffer. Other than that, there have been no changes to what was proposed at the last meeting that was recommended for approval. I know, and I'm sure you may have received some calls from the community, there was a very strong notice that went out. In 2023, the legislature changed. It requires us to put in the notice that when we adopt new zoning text, the property owner may lose the right to continue using a property as permitted today. That was not the intent of this update. As I'm sure you guys know, we've expanded our zoning code. We've added new districts, added new uses, allowed for some flexible things that weren't permissible before, accessory dwelling units, home occupancy businesses in specific areas. We understand that sentence may have caused some concerns. We've tried to address anybody who has called or emailed in response to that letter, but in this update specifically, everything's been expanded on. If there's any questions, more than happy to answer them. I don't want to continue to go on with it, so.
Just for, I guess, clarity for everybody, we're not totally rewriting it, okay? It's not what's been there, and it's just changes, trying to stay in some coordination with our comprehensive plan, which I guess my only statement is we did that comprehensive plan in 21, I think. And, in that, I think we have the whole Michigan population or whatever, and I certainly would like to revisit the comprehensive plan at some point. Allow this, and everybody who's here, for your input as to what our desires are for the city, so that it can get incorporated into the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Diane Bernal, would you like to? All right. You got 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Bernal, and I'm actually an agent on behalf of the property owner located at 147, which is right near the high school. I wanted to extend our support of proposed zoning changes to the code. Jordan has been really helpful in describing all the changes that are being proposed, and we are very much in favor of the zoning code. It's very clear cut and concise, where there was a little bit of, not confusion, but a little bit of ambiguity before, and it's not anymore. It's very when we did for this development here in general. So we are very pleased with that. I just wanted to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we're going to close this public hearing. Okay. So I'll accept the motion of approval for this item.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, we have motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Unanimous? Agenda item 3.2, we're going to open a public hearing for the consideration of possible action regarding the ordinance number 2024-0206-02, approving the update to chapter 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 of the Unified Development Code, Exhibit 9A. Mr. Ware.
Mayor and council, specifically on the rest of these sections, there has not been an update since 2016. Since then, we've had several legislative changes go through the state. This update is strictly to bring us into legislative compliance with not only the updates from the state, but also federal regulations, including things like ADA for sidewalks. That was not previously addressed in our code. This is strictly a compliance update. We've talked about amending things like parks and what that looks like. I think that's going to be more of an in-depth process. This is strictly to make sure that we're in compliance with the state law.
All right, so we're going to close this public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So we're shuffling. I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Unanimous. Agenda item 3.3, we're going to open a public hearing in consideration of possible action or consideration of the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the approval of ordinance number 2024-0206-03 for the rezoning and conditional use permit for fuel at 1200 County Road 305, Carroll, Texas 76537. Ms. Mike.
Mayor and council, this item came before you at the last meeting in January. There was the request for some time to consider what could be included in this conditional use permit. The recommendations that we've heard from planning and zoning and others include, trash abatement, fencing, enhanced sidewalks and pedestrian facilities on the property, expiration of the fuel service CUP specifically to be 18 months. So they have 18 months to pull a permit and start construction, or it's no longer valid and it's come back before you guys. We are open to any other additional provisions that you guys would like to put in there, but essentially that's where we're at. Fencing, trash abatement, enhanced pedestrian facilities, and the expiration date on this.
Jordan, you have the memo that I sent about what council can consider as a little extra, what we wanted. So if we can just go through that really quickly, a little bit wider sidewalk around the facility, a small wall in front, landscaping, not trees. Pumps have to be in front, so it meets fire code, and they discourage putting pumps behind where you can't see, and making sure there's abutments or things that protect the pumps. Several other items that I had in there. Again, I think that we should be making a base standard that is higher than the base requirement, so that we have a model for future gas stations or what have you, that will be put in residential like that. And so obviously we have a fence which has to be separating from residential property for view. Lighting in the gas station needs to be directionally pointing down. They have directional lighting that won't affect everybody like the sky. So I may have several more, forgetting that we should consider and actually implement. So if you have that, I would like to make sure we implement those items and any other items that city planning and development would like to see in there to make it, a little bit more stringent. One of the things that I also put in there is that there needs to be coordination after this with the fire department for some disaster recovery, making sure that we have proper drainage if there's a spill, and that they have an ability to respond to any situations that might take place there, and we've got a plan in place.
I guess I have one question, and this may be Jordan. I've never obviously lived around a neighborhood gas station. Here a couple of weeks ago, we heard how bad gas stations were and all the negatives that they bring in. How's this going to affect a neighborhood? What is this going to do trash-wise, crime-wise, traffic-wise? All the negatives we heard. How's that going to affect the neighborhoods in that area?
So I think specifically as it comes to trash, we have several city codes that we can abate trash specifically on, between nuisance violations, general hygiene, and site-specific things of that nature. For traffic on that intersection, because it's a smaller gas station, they're only requesting 4 pumps. There's not gonna be heavy
Well,
truck traffic.
excuse me, I think I put that in there that it was 6. So I think we can talk about that, but I think 6 is fine.
Well, at a previous meeting, their representative had mentioned that they're only really requesting 4 pumps. So this is a smaller fuel service station. It's not meant to be a high traffic area.
But again, I think what I was saying was that we want to establish standards with this, okay? So if they want to put it in work, everybody's happy. But just for future development, it wouldn't be more than 6 pumps. So however you want to put it.
Historically, the neighborhood gas stations have problems. Higher crime, do they bring anything in? I mean, just, like I said, I got to get an earful, so just want to make sure that we're playing fair on both sides here.
I think most of the concerns mentioned with the last case had to do more with the truck traffic, having people resting there overnight in their vehicles. None of that would be the case at a neighborhood gas station. I think the main thing that you're gonna see is potentially trash, right? Because people are putting stuff in, blowing. That's one thing we heard from the property owners surrounding that whenever we were talking about this at P&Z. And so they specifically requested essentially a wall around the entire backside and side of the property, so that way the trash can stay on site, and therefore it's not going onto their yard, and then we're code enforcing for those individuals that would stay on the site itself.
And do I have that right, we were talking about, what, an 8-foot wall, 6-foot wall?
I believe 6 was mentioned,
Okay,
it's
so-
pretty standard if it's masonry.
So I would be 6, and again, that's that front, I would say maybe a 3-foot little thing that separates it from the sidewalk, which we wanna make sure the sidewalks are big enough. We also wanna make sure that the traffic flow is adjusted for, making sure that maybe you have a turn lane into there or whatever, and I don't know if we have to change anything to do that.
So that would all be accounted for during their site development process, especially, I know you mentioned the lighting, that's covered in chapter 6 of our code. Essentially, their light can't interfere on other people's properties, that's pretty standard across the board. On your list as well, proper stormwater, that's during site development
Yes,
as well. Traffic flow and drives, site development, we'll get that with your TIA, when we go through the development process. The fire department and the safety measures, our fire marshal handles that, and then their crew does that. They have plans in place for other gas stations, it'll be a similar,
Similar,
situation.
yeah.
We're gonna close this public hearing. Oh, you have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And as a reminder, we'll want to be very specific with any additional provisions you want to be included in the approval. The ordinance as it's written has the P&Z recommendations, but anything additional, let us know if you'd like to include that.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Unanimous. Moving on to agenda item number 4, consent agenda items.
Mayor, as a reminder to the council, we started putting more items on the consent agenda that are routine. And so any of these that you'd like to talk about, we'll talk about separately. If you want to pull it for a separate vote, we can do that as well. But one thing we would like to recognize is some of our police department's hard work, that you'll see 3 different grant applications that are on this agenda on the consent. And so very appreciative of the work that they did to get those out, and we hope that the grant applications will be successful, but I do not want that to go unsaid about the work that they put into that.
Would you like to discuss any of the items? Accept the motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Unanimous. All right, Agenda item number 5, regular agenda items, 5.1, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a budget amendment for capital projects. Ms. Singh.
All right, Mayor and Council, as you recall, during our budget process, we did not allocate in the capital improvement fund because there was some reconciliation that needed to take place through the audit before we started allocating those funds. We were heavy into the audit this past week, and so hopefully we will have that for you at the next meeting. If not, it will be ready in the April meeting. But this item here is one item that we need to go ahead and pay on. So this was a project that was essentially finished by the time I got on board, but it was the First Street and Double Creek lift stations. There was a electrical component that delayed the final closeout of this project, so that was put in. It's been finalized, and this releases the retainage, but in order for me to pay it, we need to roll it forward from last year into this year so that we can actually pay those bills, and that's what this item is for. It's for the amount of $381,165.08, and again, that closes out that project. There will be the final payment.
How would they need to make a motion to approve that?
Just a motion to approve would be sufficient.
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Unanimous. Agenda item number 6, discussion items. Discussion, consideration, and possible direction for a proposed staffing plan. Ms. Myers.
Mayor and council, as you guys are aware, especially during budget cycle this last season, it was brought up that we have a very high cost coming out of third-party contractors. That's gonna continue to increase as we continue to grow. So we were taking a look at what it would cost to bring some of these costs in-house and the benefits it would have to us, not only being more responsive to our citizens, but also the cost-saving aspect of it. So before you is a proposal for 2 positions, an engineer and an inspector. Hiring the inspector, we essentially bring all of our permitting costs in-house, whereas right now we're spending 95% of it to a contractor. And then with the engineer, bringing the development review in-house. We'll still have an engineer for CIP projects, which is standard, but bringing the development review in-house is gonna save us hand over foot. Part of your presentation and part of the packet is some documents that show where when we had it, if we were to have somebody on staff, what that cost would be, and then where we've spent over that in the last year on these third-party contractors. The cost savings is going to be quite significant for being in-house.
And so as a reminder to this, y'all did approve the plans examiner with the budget, so that was step 1 of this. But the real savings is realized once we get that building inspector in-house, because that's where we can actually keep our permit fees. So if we were to keep the same number of permits that we had in the last 2 years, it would be almost $100,000. I think it's around 70-something thousand that we would have saved over those 2 years. But our permit volumes are increasing dramatically, and so we expect to see more savings than that overall. And so what we would do is that, this is a discussion item, but we would like direction from council. And so you have the salaries that are associated with those positions, I believe are in here. Yes, it's well, actually, Jordan, I think it was in your presentation. Do we have that we can pull it up?
Yes.
And if we can't put it up, maybe you can just read it verbally. But essentially, I do need council's, approval to do this and what to set those salaries at. And so what we would do is we'd look for your direction tonight if you want us to move forward with this. we post those positions for hire. As they're hired, we will then come back to, council to do budget amendments, because what we'll do is we'll move those funds from contracts into, salaries to accommodate those employees. And we don't know how long it will take to hire them, so that's why we're not doing the budget amendments first, otherwise we can move them back and forth depending on when they actually get hired.
As council is responsible for the budget, I would just like to see that we can put together a little cost benefit analysis. As you add people, there's always a lot of overhead down the road, raises and what have you. But I definitely want to see that we identify critical contractors and negotiate an overlap so that new people coming aboard, we consult with those people and have a good transition. How we accomplish that can be done in a couple of months or whatever, based on what that contract is. So if we could do that, that would,
It's fully the intent. We have too much stuff going on for somebody to just walk in and
yes,
do a swap like that. There will be several.
overlaps.
Yeah. And I do have the numbers that we have pulled up here. And so essentially the city engineer, the range for that would be 80 to 115,000. Since fiscal year start, we've spent over $250,000 on our
Right.
contract engineer. For the inspector, it's 65 to 85,000 a year, and this is again, just the range. It doesn't say that it's at either end of that. And we pay our third-party contractor right now almost $25,000 a month, in permit fees for them to do our plan review and inspections. We have somebody for plan review now, we're getting that situated, but we still get hit with inspections if we don't have a legal inspector who has the licensing required to do inspections. So either way, bringing it completely in-house is saving us that money and keeping it with us, which can then be used elsewhere.
And so for the permit tech and the inspector, when you add those monthly costs, including full benefits, retirement, all of that kind of stuff, it's $15,830.60 per month. That's for paying at the maximum for those two positions. So compared to the roughly $22,000 we're spending a month, there's significant savings. Now, the couple caveats we'll add with that is we'll still need to, these are building inspector, you have to have that position going every single day. We can't stop those inspections. So in order for this person to have sick time, vacation, things like that, we would still have something on contract that we can call in a third party to fill in when we have those gaps. Or if our workload starts to get really heavy and we can't accomplish it with one inspector, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll analyze it of when it makes sense to hire somebody and move out of the contracts that way. And as Ms. Moyer said, they're $250,000 fiscal year to date, since October 1st is a lot of money. Some of those costs are still going to occur because some of those are specialized engineering design fees, but we're still gonna see a lot of savings from bringing this position in-house, and we're gonna be able to be more responsive to people's requests whenever we have these positions on staff.
Now, I would just like to just mention, because I get harassed about this a lot, code enforcement. Are we gonna get somebody out there that's actually doing code enforcement? I hope that's a priority.
It is, and I was hoping that we could actually, we could see enough savings with this to bring that to you outright, because I know I've heard that from multiple council members, that is absolutely a priority. I think we're gonna have to do this in phases, and so what we'll do is we'll look at this little bit of savings we had on this one, right? And, hopefully in the next couple of meetings, we're gonna bring you a plan with Public Works. And some of that needs to be moved into the utility fund, which we're gonna be working on with our utility rate study is going on. So we're gonna keep looking at those little incremental savings, and we're gonna bring y'all new positions to put on. And so again, that way, it's moving from contracts to more salaries, but we do need to realize some more savings for that. If we're not able to accomplish that with these upcoming staffing plans, it's certainly something we'll be proposing to you with the next budget. And same thing with PD. I know they're anxious to hire more officers, and so the chief and I have been discussing a lot about how we do that. Moving out of these contracts is how we get all that stuff done. So if you would like us to move forward on it, it would be good for us just to have a motion to direct the staff to move forward, just so know formally that that is the direction that the council wants us to go.
The only thing that I would suggest is if you do propose the position, is you stick to proposed salaries. You have to go above and beyond to find talent. What I don't want to happen is you approve this and then it turns into everybody just exceeds their salary because nobody wants to do the job. So you'll have to leave that out. That's my only concern. If you can stay on what you proposed, what yours is done, that's no problem. I don't want to turn into everybody making six figures on the
And just to ease your concerns about that, I don't have the authority to increase that. Specifically, I think it's in our employee manual, it says that the city manager can only hire within the rates approved by council. So I would have to come back to you to hire anything out of such rates.
Which gets back to my cost benefit analysis, if we could take a look at that, and we pretty much know how to go forward.
So if there's additional data you'd like to see from what we provided here, because this is the cost of the contract versus the cost of the employees.
Well, understood.
Well, I would need to know what additional information.
Yeah,
you'd
no,
like to see.
let's sweat it, I mean, it all has to do with length of time, it's, what the raise is gonna be, and benefits that we have to put out versus contract.
Need a movement to approve?
Yeah.
Make a movement to approve. 6.1.
All right, we have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Unanimous. Agenda item 6.2, discussion, consideration, and possible action on plans to occupy the building located at 191 Town Center Boulevard. Ms. Singh.
All right, so if you don't recognize this address, this is the former vet building at the end of the parking lot, at the end of the block we're on right now. It's the green building. So the council signed a lease on this, and I think during the budget process, it came up briefly at one point about staff moving over there. We wanted to let you know that we've looked at it. The chief has looked at it. The plan is to move our police department over there. They are severely overcrowded in their current facilities in this building, and so this would give them a lot of room for expansion. We only lease the property right now. I hope that long-term we could eventually buy it. I think it's absolutely the ideal location. There's a lot of room to expand. But because I think there was some discussion about this not being a facility for PD, I wanted to bring it back to the council just to make sure y'all were okay with that plan of action. But the chief has been hard at work on the layout. We've gotten some initial prices on it. We can get kind of the bare minimum of what they need to get in there pretty quickly, and we can start that process. And so the chief is here to answer any more questions, but we just wanted to make sure we brought this to your attention before we move forward on it.
I think I was the guy that had a concern about not moving the police over there at one point in time, and it basically revolved around the last chief's recommendations that there were lacking in storage, I forget what you would call it, for items that need to be stored, from crimes, drugs, whatever, and then the armament there. So they had some questions. Now, I know you amped it, I haven't looked at it. But if you feel like that's okay, my only other concern is that, to me, there's a very congested area out there, and how that traffic flow, I just want to make sure that you can get in and out, and, eventually we've got to get some civilization out here, but that was another concern.
Yes, sir, we will meet all state laws, regulations, and CJIS requirements for the property, including all of the storage. That's going to be fine. We've worked out ways to be able to do that, and actually it's a better place than we have now. Well, I would recommend we kind of move forward quickly as possible to acquire the building. But, and in this way, I don't know, I've heard maybe we'll go up 2 stories on that, is that?
It is a possibility.
Is that
We expand both outward and upward.
There's a very large buildable footprint on there, and so that's why I think ultimately it could be the final location for our main police department going forward, and doing a complete rebuild if we could actually acquire the property. So, it's got great access, you know, it's centralized, I think it could be a really good, permanent location. But at least right now, that's them a little bit extra from what they have.
It's almost, well, not quite double the space that we have.
So we don't need a motion on this, I just wanted to have this discussion so the council could tell us if they wanted us to move forward in a different direction, again, because there had been some discussion previously.
Do you have any idea on the cost that it would take to renovate that building?
Not the total cost, I think we're working on that aspect of it now. We just got the design layouts and the changes that we need to make structurally, so that we can fortify the building and make all the necessary adaptation for a police department. And I think now going forward, we can actually work on the cost now.
Absolutely, and this will be done in phases. The initial getting, we'll have to put some additional walls up, just to, make it function as a police department, extra security measures, things like that. That part's gonna be relatively small. We have money in our current budget that will be able to do that. But this will be an ongoing project of little pieces that we'll need to add over time, additional parking areas, fences to secure their cars. And so I think, but the initial stages, we absolutely have the money for, and in the future, we'll be coming back to council to talk about, you know, the full needs of, that they currently have. But we'll get them up and running there.
And I'll add also, I've discussed this plan with the police department, reviewed with them. Everybody's really excited about this, so, it's gonna be a good meeting for the police department.
Get crowded.
We're crowded now, yes, I mean, we're gonna end up being crowded there, but it's gonna take a little bit of time. And then, but like I said, the footprint in that area is perfect.
I have a question, how much longer do we have on the lease for that location?
Is it 5 years?
It's a 5-year lease with the first letter refusal, I believe, that we have, but it's automatically extended, so it's almost an indefinite period as long as one of the 2 parties comes to draw.
And if they do decide to sell, we do have that first right of refusal. And so I think we should write out the lease a little bit longer, just from a financing perspective, but then I do think that we should be approaching them about potentially buying it.
My whole thing is, how we're about to invest a lot of money in this building, and then we're saying we're gonna buy it, but, that all, property owners, well, now you got it built into where you need it, where else are you gonna go? Or potentially, it's a better route to find something else, and just own it outright.
I think we're riding a fine line with the cost we're going to incur. We need something less than it would be to acquire property and planning.
Right.
And do all that going forward. I think just the investment in what we're doing now, for reading the 3 to 5 year period, would be much better for the city than if we get to actually starting from scratch.
It just sounds like we're gonna put a lot of money in a building we don't own. At the end of that contract, they could be like, well, we're gonna sell it, move, so this is my only concern about that, but you guys are willing to do the minimal amount, and it does help y'all function as a police department, I think. If we could get something in writing up front, I don't know who the police is, but I would make it feel better before we start going to police for even adding all the credit.
There's a good chance not really in the same room will still be on this line, so.
Yeah, we would never go into those major renovations, that's just kind of long-term, that we could do at that location. We already do have it in writing, that we get first right of refusal, so if they decide to sell, we can buy, we have that, we have to say no before they can sell to somebody else. And so we'll protect it from that standpoint, and it's a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, to get them into a good space for the next several years, we're looking around $20,000 for this first phase. Again, there's gonna be additional things that might be needed in the future, but that's I'm giving y'all the high end, so y'all don't go, why did you spend that much? I'm expecting more like half that, but $20,000, I think is the maximum we would spend on this first phase to get some, additional security for evidence, walls put up in the front so that there's not just full access, ventilation in our.
Restricted access,
Yeah.
entry and exits, ventilation systems for various places and spaces we have. The completely do with evidence room for protection, the outside portion of the building. What else?
The windows,
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
change the windows out so that you can actually open them as part of security requirements. I'd love to have open windows in the police department.
Yeah, you can. Just a quick question though, is there a possibility of some ancillary use to it until we just slide everybody over? In other words, I bet maybe we can have a couple of offices in there for, say, an EDC person or.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think what we can do, we should be moved into that building in the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and I just didn't know if there was enough capacity, need be to,
Oh, just to do additionally with us? No, I don't believe it would.
okay.
Yeah, they, it's a tight fit for them now. I mean,
Okay.
they'll be able to, as they expand, add additional personnel in there. And again, it's much better than what they have right now, but it's gonna be a tight fit. But the good news is that, once they clear out of this side of the building, then we'll be able to expand city offices, because at this point, we've got, in some cases, 3 people in an office. And so we were, with the new employees that we added, we're filling up, so.
All right, well, it's not that we don't support the police, it's just we're gonna be very adamant on, so we get something from it, that they're like, you guys are gonna do all this work and build it out, and we can sell it or loot you, but, it's gonna be all for the minimum, make sure you guys can do your job, and we can get something more stable that we can move forward with that building.
And I do agree with you about the lease aspect of it, because it gives the opportunity to evaluate it fully and properly, position whether or not it could be feasible.
Yeah, we're not even gonna work out for the whole time.
Yeah, so that is the opportunity. If we were to lease a space or do something else for city employees, it's gonna cost us a lot more for that.
You got it, Mr. Ruffin.
Need a motion to,
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
I don't have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Unanimous?
Missing, would it be appropriate for me to talk about the employee stuff now?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Assistant Chief Matthews, can you please come in? I just wanted to tell council and give it a little bit. Officer Romero and Assistant Chief Matthews have been working diligently over the past 6, 8 weeks. There he is. And I wanted to give them thanks and kudos for what they've been to accomplish with the grant program. This is something I don't believe the department or the city has ever really delved into, but it makes a huge difference for our ability as a department and also to the community as well. It's those are resources that we can feed back into the department in other areas, other parts of the city as well. But I want to really thank them for all the things that they did and give them the credit for responsibility.
Thank y'all. All right, agenda item number 7, we're going to adjourn into closed session, executive session. 7.1, discussion of possible action regarding the employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of public officer, employees with appointments of members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Also 7.2, discussion of possible action regarding the employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee with appointments of members of the Bureau of Economic Development Corporation. 7.3, closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the employment, employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee to wit, Executive Director, General Economic Development Corporation. And 7.4, closed executive session pursuant to 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate economic development negotiations regarding Project Lunch Lady.
I don't know what that looks like for.
General City Council is now back in session at 9:53 p.m. All right. 8.1, discussion and possible action regarding the employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee to wit, appointments of members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have no action. Agenda item 8.2, discussion and possible action regarding the employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee to wit, a new member of the General Economic Development Corporation.
All right, I make a motion to, 7.2, that we appoint, excellent. Okay, I got 7.2 written down here. For 8.2, that we appoint a ex officio now, to some member of the school board,
School board or district?
the district. School district. Got the proper phrase, or we, okay, school district.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. You're unanimous. Agenda item 8.3, discussion of possible action regarding the employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee to wit, Executive Director, General Economic Development Corporation. We have no action. And 8.4, discussion of possible action regarding the economic development negotiations regarding Project Lunch Lady. This item, we also have no action. So that's everything. Gerald, City Council? No. Me.
Yes,